Next game we're covering here is going to be Tennessee. They're 7th in the CFP, 9 seed overall. And Ohio State, the 8th seed, 6th in the CFP. So pretty even matchup when it comes to the rankings, both CFP rankings as well as how they seeded the teams. Games taking place 8 p.m. Eastern. This is the last game of the first round. TV makers, they knew what they were doing. This is a brand game. It's a very strong game. It's going to be taking place in Columbus, Ohio. Ohio State's favored by 7 points. And the over-under is 47.5. So they're expecting kind of a low-scoring game in this one.
Yeah,
what do we think here?
It's going to be cold. It's going to be a cold game. And winner of this game does have a tough run. They do have to play Oregon. But looking at these two teams, I think these are two teams that can have polar opposite days. Like if either team has a good day and the other has a bad day, this game could get ugly either way. Like a bad Tennessee is drastically different from a good day for Tennessee. Same for Ohio State. There's already a little controversy out on the stadium because I think Tennessee fans got their hands on some tickets. I saw some 65-35 stadium split projections.
Paint the town volunteer orange.
Crazy. I mean, if it is 65-35 in that stadium, I mean, that almost negates a home field advantage other than the weather up there. But, this is going to be a good game. I think this is the most close and fair matchup of the playoff first round. And it's the 8 and 9 seed. I think either of these teams could have been flipped for the home team based on the CFP rankings.
Yeah, I mean, the flip really kind of came down to which team had more ranked wins, and we always talk about it. The committee determines who has the ranked wins, and these teams have looked pretty even for the most part this season. I think the main theme this game is going to come down to what these teams are able to do in terms of stopping the run. So it sounds similar to our last preview if you listen to the full length, but from a quarterback perspective, Nico and Will Howard are pretty even, right? Just they're players that have been playing solid football. Last game, Nico had 4 touchdowns. Is one of his most impressive performances this season. He has been really solid for them. He hasn't lost in games, but we're waiting for that breakout game against really tough competition. So, and on the other side, Will Howard, I feel like he's in a similar boat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Both quarterbacks have been criticized at times. I think maybe I've been hard on Nico at times. I think, the spotlight for Tennessee is on Dylan Sampson, but the turnovers that were early on in the season for Nico, he's really toned that down. He's been more of a consistent passer for them, and where they might have started more conservative with him, they've opened it up a little bit. He's now he's 10th in the nation on depth of target, throwing over 10 yards per play, something that early on in the season he did versus NC State, and then kind of toned back a little bit and is getting back. Will Howard playing great all year. Last week's game, or week before against Michigan was not pretty. In one of his worst games of the season. So that's what I mean by, two teams, two quarterbacks that on a bad day are pretty bad, but on a good day can definitely elevate their team.
Yeah. And you talked about it with Nico. His floor has been a lot higher these past couple weeks, 10 touchdowns. I think he had 1 interception over the past 4 weeks. And now, mind you, that competition is Mississippi State and UTEP and Vanderbilt from a defensive perspective, but he's not turned the ball over as much. Will Howard this season, he's playing about what we should have expected from Will Howard. He had 27 touchdowns this year, 24 last year. He's got 2 less picks this year. So he's playing good football, but his interceptions came at the worst time for most Ohio State fans. 2 interceptions against Michigan. So you don't want to see that type of performance in this game against Tennessee, who brings a pretty strong pass rush that can cause a lot of pressures.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's one of the key things of Tennessee. We always are looking at the running back. I'm saying his name again. I'm going to talk about it all day, Dylan Sampson. But
SEC Offensive Player of the Year. Put some respect on his name.
That's right. That's right. But this is the Tennessee defense that is putting a lot of pressure out there. And when teams are getting pressure on Ohio State, they are not scoring as much. I mean, it's just kind of that's football in general, but it's happening to Ohio State. And you might have to stick with me on this one, but I saw someone making a comparison that Tennessee is just Michigan 2.0. Like they're just a better version of Michigan. And it makes sense. Both teams prefer to pound the rock. Tennessee is one of the teams that runs the ball the most in the country. They don't ask too much of their quarterback. They have a strong D-line, good cornerbacks. Looking at how Ohio State matched up against Michigan, putting this Tennessee team there is why I kind of start to like Tennessee in this game. And it starts with the strong D-line. But then it moves over a little bit towards running the ball, which Ohio State has been great at all year, but struggled against Michigan a little bit last in their matchup.
Yeah. And then the last matchup was definitely an anomaly for them rushing the ball. I mean, they had a pretty good performance. I always compare it to their Oregon game. And they've had this committee system, right? Trayvon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Judkins last year had over 1,000 yards. It's pretty much this year he's at around 850. So it's a committee system that overall they have 1,500 rushing yards, which is really impressive. But when you look at the litmus tests of the games that they've been playing, Michigan seems like one of the toughest tests given how strong that defense is and what they were able to do slowing those guys down. Tennessee is no easier of a test, right? Joshua Jones for Tennessee has a 91.6 rushing grade according to PFF. So they have some strong guys who someone like Joshua Josephs can stop the run, and he's strong in the pass when it comes to causing pressures and sacks for the team alongside Pierce.
Yeah. And it works, both sides. I mean, the running for Ohio State, could be solid in this game. It could get stumped, but I think it's going to be a key piece of it. I don't think that they're going to be able to stop Tennessee's running. That's been their keys. Ohio State, hard team to run on, less than 100 yards per game, 172 to Michigan. They knew it was coming. I think they come into this game against Tennessee and they know that the ball is going to be ran often.
Yeah.
And I good for Khalil Mullins, good for Jordan James on Oregon. But they're no Dylan Sampson.
Yep.
I could see them not being able to stop it. And you're in a cold game like this, I think it's going to be more efficient running the ball. It's built a little bit towards this Tennessee team a little.
Yeah, 100% with you. It definitely favors them here. I think the magical outlier for Ohio State is Jeremiah Smith, however.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tennessee has had the opportunity to face guys like Ryan Williams. They did a pretty good job of slowing him down. Jeremiah Smith is going to be one of those guys who's similar to, if not better than him, 10 touchdowns on the season. Does this defense for Tennessee have an answer if Will Howard is able to find him in space to create some plays in the passing game?
Yeah, I mean, the Tennessee pass defense has done well from a cornerback perspective. The DBs have been playing well. Safety play has been good. So it is going to be about them taking shots, and they're going to do it. He's going to throw it out there when he sees them in single coverage. I do think that Tennessee can trust their guys, though, in that environment. It's going to be a tough game. I think it is. It's a matchup between good defenses. Really, I think the key is the defenses of these two teams. The offenses have been good. But in the games that they've lost, the Michigan offense, they played a good offensive game against Oregon. But then when we start looking at Tennessee versus Arkansas in the game that they lost there, against Georgia in the game that they saw there, the offense is what kind of fell behind, not the defense.
So it's really gonna be what Tennessee's offense can do against a tough defense like Ohio State, number 1 in the nation in terms of yards per game, number 2 in the nation in terms of yards per game allowed in the air, 19th in the nation in sacks, 35. What can this Tennessee offense do? Can they mirror what a Jordan James and what a Mullins did against Ohio State for Oregon and Michigan, respectively, with Dylan Sampson, who's supposed to be the best running back in the SEC, a top running back in the country, and then on the other side for Ohio State, what can this offense do when it comes to getting the rush established against this really tough defense?
Yeah, and when can Tennessee do it? I think it comes down to the red zone. Ohio State is the best red zone team in the country defensively. They only allow a field goal even 55% of the time, which is pretty absurd. I think most teams are in like the 70 to 80%, 55% of the time. So, with Dylan Sampson, he's not a huge breakaway runner. They're going to find themselves in the red zone having to score, and that's going to be the key to this game. When you're facing a student section, you're facing an end zone in a home stadium. It's a tough spot to be in, and both teams are going to face that. But that is the key: is does Ohio State continue to have the red zone defense, or does Tennessee figure out a way to overcome that? And I guarantee you, it's something that they're working on because of how proficient Ohio State is in the red zone.
Right. And I think, and I believe it, I have to say it, the pressure to me is on Ohio State. There's, Tennessee making the playoff, this first time playoff format. Obviously they want to win, no doubt. Ryan Day has this pressure right now, the head coach of Ohio State, where he needs to probably get to the semifinals for fans to feel happy. I don't think he's going to get fired, but he needs to get to the semifinals, at least for fans to feel good about this season, because Ohio State doesn't expect to backdoor into the playoffs in these type of scenarios where you're getting in without being one of the top 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah, especially when you lost to Michigan. All of a sudden, you could, you only lost one game up to that point, but the seat starts looking hot because you lost to Michigan now, 3 years in a row, which is bad. So, the pressure is on Ohio State. And I know Kirk Herbstreit made the comments about, Ohio State not even necessarily being that much of a home field advantage because of how the fans feel about, failure on a football field. If you have to punt, you get a 3 and out, the fans, you start losing your fans. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. But with Tennessee fans in there, with the pressure being on Ohio State as the favorites in this game, they are going to have to be hot early. I think it's about pressuring Nico. Don't let the play break down. Don't let him extend the play. Containing the run. I think this will just be kind of more smash mouth football. This will feel like a really good playoff game. Not a lot of BS, more, pounding the rock from two teams and playing good football.
And they're giving us one of the closest spreads of the day, right? Everyone talks about all these playoff games and playoff blowouts and this reason why they didn't want to expand and et cetera, et cetera. This game is slated to most likely give us one of the closest games, like you mentioned. And I completely agree with a lot of the keys you have here. So final predictions from us here. What you got?
I think Tennessee wins by 3. Last second field goal, 17-17. They get close. It's tough to kick field goals in cold weather, but I like Tennessee by 3 here on the road.
Okay. I'm going to say 24-17 Tennessee in this one. I think it is by touchdown. Both teams kind of are able to score a little bit in the first half, a little bit in the second half. And Tennessee's kind of able to get that defensive stop.